Hi, this is Stuart Talley. I'm here today to do another update on the ongoing Pinnacle metal-on-metal hip trial. Today there was testimony from one of the plaintiff's son. The plaintiff, one of the plaintiffs, there's 5 plaintiffs, one of the plaintiffs had a hip revision surgery, and his son testified about how the hip revision really impacted his father's life. It was his son who testified about his father. And it was a very powerful testimony about how this hip revision surgery really did impact his father in a dramatic way. He used to be very active, and after the surgery he had lots of problems. Most of the day, however, was spent playing a videotape testimony of a doctor in Leeds, England. His name is Tony Nargol. And Tony Nargol is an orthopedic surgeon in Leeds, England, and his office is about an hour from DePuy's European headquarters. And Dr. Nargol was one of the first surgeons anywhere in the world to start using metal-on-metal hips, and was sort of somebody who DePuy embraced at one point. They would fly him around the world to have him teach other doctors how to put in metal-on-metal Pinnacle hips, and as well metal-on-metal ASR hips. Both of those are DePuy products, both metal-on-metal hips. Dr. Nargol talked about how he had put in hundreds of these hips, metal-on-metal Pinnacles and ASRs, and after a couple years he started having problems. He had patients coming back to him reporting lots of pain in the groin. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. X-rays were coming back normal. And it wasn't until they operated that they found these terrible, terrible reactions in their patients. And in particular, what he described was situations where there was metallic fluid and black stained tissue and lots of tissue destruction inside the hip. And the hips had to be revised. This problem started as a small problem at the beginning, and then over time it got worse and worse. What's interesting about this is that most of these problems began around 2008. And at the time, Dr. Nargol was reporting this to DePuy. He had several meetings with DePuy executives. They had this office right down the road, and he would visit them and tell them what he was seeing. He actually sent them videos, he sent them pictures. He had DePuy executives in the operating room with him when he was doing a revision surgery to show him what he was seeing. And what happened was DePuy made it out that there was something wrong with Dr. Nargol. That was their story. Their story was, you must be putting these in wrong because we're not having problems anywhere else in the world. You're the only one who's reporting these problems. And so Dr. Nargol couldn't understand what was going on. The other thing that they tried to do was blame the patients. They were asking him lots of questions and proposing hypotheses such as, well, maybe you have patients that are hypersensitive, meaning allergic to these hips. And maybe there's something about Leeds, England, and the people who live there that makes them more susceptible to these problems than normal people. Dr. Schmalz, one of the inventors of the hip, actually gave a lecture somewhere where he hypothesized that there was something in the water that made people in Leeds, England have problems with these hips. The truth is, DePuy was getting at the same time reports from all over the world that other surgeons were having problems with these hips. And that was displayed during the trial. I mean, there were emails, there were reports, there was a lot going on from numerous centers around the world of doctors reporting problems with these hips. And DePuy's response to that was to blame the doctor, blame the patient, tell the doctor that he's the only one who's reporting the problems. One of the most shocking things, I think, that came out of the testimony today was 2012. Dr. Nargol's having all these problems. He has done hundreds of these hips, and he estimates that about 9% of them have had to be revised at 5 years, which is a very, very high number. It should be less than 5% at 5 years. So Dr. Nargol, multiple executives at DePuy, and the MHRA, which is the European equivalent of the FDA, they had a big meeting in 2012. And during this meeting, Dr. Nargol explained that he thought the revision rate for these hips were 5%. DePuy put up a big chart and graph and explained that their own internal documents showed that the revision rate was only 4%. And Dr. Nargol was an outlier, and he must be putting him in wrong, and all the fingers were pointed at Dr. Nargol during this meeting. Well, it turns out that DePuy, at this exact same time, had internal documents that were presented at the trial showing that the revision rate at 5 years was not 9%, it was actually 14%. And DePuy knew this and never presented that data or that information to anyone at this meeting that occurred in England. It was a very, very powerful day, I think, for the plaintiffs. I think the testimony was very powerful. It showed that DePuy was warned about these problems back in 2008, that they knew about them. They tried to sweep it all under the rug. And whenever an issue came up, they would blame the doctor or blame the patient, which is, according to the plaintiffs, which is what they're trying to do now in this trial. So a good day for the plaintiff. There's more to come. We're getting closer to the end of the trial. Things are moving along. If you have any questions or concerns or want to ask anything about the trial, feel free to give us a call. You can reach us at the phone number on the screen, or you can fill out one of our online forms and we'll get back to you right away.